Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a world where the lines between the known and the unknown really start to blur, where public imagination just runs wild and, well, where official government documents suddenly take a very, very strange turn.
Yes, fascinating territory.
It really makes you wonder, what happens when the allure of the unexplained isn't just, a campfire story, but something that lands squarely on the desks of the FBI?
That's exactly where we're headed. As we continue digging into these declassified government documents, our mission today is to pull back the curtain on a truly fascinating collection.
And these aren't theories, right, or just hearsay.
No, not at all. These are raw, publicly available files straight from the FBI's own vault. Specifically, we're looking at 1947.
1947, the big year.
The big year, it saw this explosion of widespread reports of flying discs and flying saucers. It completely captured the public imagination and understandably posed some very real, very official questions for the authorities.
And for you listening, our mission here isn't about proving or disproving anything. We're not taking sides.
Exactly. We're here as your guides, really navigating through these reports, the observations, the internal government memos, all contained within these files.
The goal is pretty simple. We want to present the facts just as they were reported by the FBI at the time. This allows you to form your own conclusions.
Yeah, think of it as a unique historical window. It gives you a glimpse into a time when the skies seemed full of genuine enigmas and government agencies were, well, scrambling to make sense of it all.
And remember, these documents we're talking about, you can actually go and read them yourself. They're on the FBI Vault website, public domain.
That's a crucial point. This isn't hidden knowledge. It's out there for anyone interested enough to look.
Okay, so before we jump into the specific reports, maybe set the stage. What was 1947 actually like?
Right, context is key here. 1947, it's just 2 years after World War II ended. It's a period of huge global change, immense underlying tension.
The Cold War is starting to simmer?
Exactly. The atomic age had just dawned, jet technology was advancing incredibly fast, but still largely secret, And the Cold War was casting this long shadow of suspicion, paranoia, especially about potential secret Russian weapons or intelligence ops.
So, a pretty anxious time.
Very anxious, and it created this climate where anything new or unexplained up in the sky could immediately be seen through this lens of national security, public knowledge of classified military projects, minimal, but anxiety about advanced enemy tech, off the charts.
And right into that environment.
Reports of these strange aerial phenomena start flooding in. It created a real challenge for authorities trying to figure out what, if anything, was truly happening. Was it, a new American prototype, a Soviet weapon, or something else entirely?
Okay, let's unpack this flood of reports. Our first stop, looking at these FBI files, takes us right across America. Eyewitness accounts pouring in.
Yeah, from a real mix of people. And the details are often captivating, but sometimes, honestly, incredibly contradictory.
It paints this vivid picture, doesn't it? A whole nation sort of grappling with something totally new, completely outside their normal experience.
Absolutely. The documents show this wide array of reports, different parts of the country. And what's really significant is who's doing the reporting.
Not just one type of person.
No, it's ordinary citizens, sure, but also trained personnel. We're talking pilots, engineers, military officers. That diversity is important. It speaks to how widespread whatever it was seemed to be. It makes it harder to just dismiss as, isolated incidents or some kind of mass hysteria in one group.
All right, let's dive into some specifics. Where should we start? How about the South? Birmingham, Alabama.
Good place to start. The FBI files mention a newspaper report detailing mysterious objects seen over the city starting around June 25th, 1947.
Can you imagine the buzz? The report says the city was utterly baffled.
And get this. The local newspaper's switchboard operator, described as being in bedlam with calls. People calling in reporting different versions of what they saw.
So it wasn't just one or two people, it was a wave.
Clearly a wave that really gripped the community. And what's compelling about these Alabama reports are the descriptions. They keep recurring, even if they're a bit vague sometimes.
Like what? What were people saying they saw?
Consistently. Large, metallic, moving at great speed. Some said they were just suspended in the air. Others saw them traveling noiselessly through the black sky at great distances.
Noiselessly. That's a key detail that keeps coming up.
It is. And a few even reported seeing strange forms. Now, despite the different versions people called in, there's this underlying consistency in the core characteristics. Large, fast, metallic, silent.
Which suggests Maybe they were seeing something similar, even if they described it slightly differently.
It points that way. It suggests a commonality in the phenomenon being witnessed, and the sheer volume of calls. That tells you it was widespread public engagement, genuine bewilderment, not just a few oddballs looking for attention. It shows how fast these sightings caught the public imagination.
Okay, from baffled Birmingham, let's head northwest. Washington State. A really fascinating sighting here on May 5th, 1947, between Ellensburg and Seattle.
Ah, yes. This one involves a rather unusual pair of witnesses.
Right, a Montana State prison official and his convict chauffeur. Not exactly your everyday sky watchers.
Which, in a way, maybe adds a layer of unexpected credibility. They probably didn't have any preconceived notions about UFOs.
Good point. So what did they report seeing?
They saw a silver object streaking across the sky. Pretty standard so far, maybe. But then it takes this really surprising turn.
Go on.
This object goes into a dramatic nosedive. They actually thought it was going to crash. You can imagine them bracing for impact.
Okay, and then?
And then the detail that just sets this one apart. Before reaching the Earth, it disintegrated, leaving a long pillar of gas hanging in the sky.
Disintegrated. Not crashed, but just came apart.
Came apart in midair. And this wasn't just a puff of smoke that blew away. The report is explicit. This smoky, gaseous pillar remained maimed in form and did not blow away.
Maimed in form. What does that even mean?
Hard to say exactly, but it implies it held a distinct, perhaps distorted shape. And they observed it for a remarkable 20 to 30 miles as they kept driving. A persistent atmospheric anomaly.
That's bizarre. What about the object before it disintegrated?
Described as traveling at an excessively high rate of speed with erratic movements, the prison official first thought, reasonably for the time, jet-propelled plane. But he quickly realized it wasn't conventional, especially, after it just fell apart.
That detail. The maimed, persistent gas pillar.
Yeah.
That's unique. You don't hear that in every report. It defies easy explanation.
It really does. It suggests some kind of significant, lasting atmospheric effect, maybe from its propulsion, maybe from the disintegration itself. Who knows?
And what about the witnesses themselves? Were they quick to report it?
Actually, no. And this adds to their credibility, I think. They initially decided that they must be seeing things. They didn't report it right away.
They doubted themselves.
Yeah. It wasn't until they saw all the newspaper coverage about similar discs popping up everywhere that they thought, okay, maybe what we saw was real. And then they came forward. Suggests they wanted to verify their experience, not sensationalize it. They were genuinely perplexed.
Okay, let's move east a bit. Montana. Another intriguing one from July 29th, 1947, near Canyon Ferry.
Right. This one involved 3 individuals in a sedan. Steve, Carl, and Bob Madden. Just driving along a road.
And then suddenly,
one of them, Carl, shouts, "See it, there is a flying saucer." Now, he first thought it was a meteor coming over the horizon at high speed.
Flying saucer. That term caught on fast, didn't it?
Incredibly fast. This is July 47. Kenneth Arnold's famous sighting that basically coined the phrase was just in June. So within weeks, it's in the public lexicon. People were already primed to use that specific term.
So what did they all see after Carl shouted?
They saw it directly ahead, some 2 to 3 miles distant and approximately 3,600 feet above the ground, a bright disk hovering and fluttering in the air.
Hovering and fluttering. That sounds unsteady.
Yeah, and then it descended and rose vertically, 50 or 100 feet up and down for about 5 seconds. That erratic, almost playful movement, totally unlike conventional aircraft.
And then it took off.
Dramatically. While at the top of an ascent, the disk suddenly swooped to the northeast at tremendous speed and disappeared into the clear sky within a distance of 200 feet.
Disappeared within 200 feet. Not just flew out of sight.
The report emphasizes it didn't just pass behind a hill or something. It melted into thin air, quote unquote, as if because of tremendous speed. That sudden vanishing act, the sheer velocity, that's a critical piece here.
Did they get a good look at it? Any physical description?
They did offer specifics, apparently 3 feet in diameter, circular and of no great thickness, approximately 3 or 4 inches. Now, the size estimate is tricky at a distance. The report acknowledges the true dimensions must be considerably greater.
Sure, judging size in the sky is hard. But the shape? Thin disk.
Thin disk. And it gleamed and shimmered in the bright sunlight as if covered with highly polished nickel.
Polished nickel. I feel like I've heard that description before in these early reports.
You have. That specific detail, polished nickel, pops up in various reports, different places, different witnesses. When you see a consistent visual characteristic like that across unrelated reports, it suggests maybe they're observing a similar phenomenon. It's not just shiny. It's specifically polished nickel.
That's the kind of detail investigators must have keyed in on, right? Something consistent in all the noise.
Absolutely. It hints at a common sort or nature for at least some sightings, makes them harder to just wave away as, misidentified planes or birds.
Okay, let's pivot to Utah, Logan. September 8th, 1947. This time it's multiple sightings.
Yeah, several young couples. They had apparently been playing bridge, stepped outside, and saw something unusual. A social evening taking an unexpected turn.
What did this group see?
They observed approximately a dozen objects flying in group formation at about 2,000 or 3,000 feet.
A dozen, flying together.
In formation. And their description is striking. They appeared rather white and illuminated and were similar in size to pigeons, but moving faster than birds.
Faster than birds, but the key thing.
Crucially, witnesses observed no wing movement. That's a big differentiator. Not planes, not birds flapping. Silent, illuminated objects in formation, moving fast without visible means of propulsion.
And the fact multiple people saw this together adds weight.
It does. But there was another perspective, too. One of the couples said the objects seemed to change in formation and appeared to be similar to a group of moving stars.
Moving stars. It's quite poetic, but also vague. Shows how hard it was to describe.
Exactly. The report even concludes that the witnesses were unable to make up their minds as to exactly what they saw. This just speaks volumes about the sheer novelty, the difficulty in categorizing these things using familiar terms.
That confusion seems to be a running theme. People trying to fit these sightings into known boxes, but the boxes just didn't fit.
Precisely. This genuine confusion, documented right there in official FBI files, it underscores how unusual these events really were. Something was up there that defied immediate understanding.
Let's head back to Seattle, Washington. The so-called Blue Triangle, August 12th, 1947.
Ah, yes. This report is significant because of the witnesses. Bruce Armstrong, an electronics technician at Boeing Aircraft, and several other engineers.
Boeing engineers. People trained to look at things in the sky, right? Their testimony should carry some weight.
You'd think so. The description of the object is quite distinct. Triangular in shape, appearing as a black or dark blue substance, and fluttering like a leaf.
Fluttering like a leaf. That's odd for something triangular. And the estimated altitude and speed.
About 200 feet high, moving about 15 miles per hour. Slow, low, fluttering dark triangle. Definitely anomalous compared to known aircraft of the time. Boeing engineers would know if it was one of theirs, presumably.
But then came the official explanation attempt, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. The control tower operator for Northwest Airlines at Boeing Field remembered seeing several pieces of burnt paper which flew over the field around that time, including a large piece of burnt paper approximately 3 feet in length.
So they suggested the Boeing engineers saw burnt paper.
That was the suggestion. Quite a leap from a dark blue fluttering triangle observed by trained engineers, wouldn't you say? It really highlights that tendency to reach for the most mundane explanation, even if it doesn't quite fit the description.
Seems like a stretch. Was there anything else seen around that time?
Yes. Complicating things further, another witness, Y.I. Etchells, described something totally different. A big ball reflecting light, giving it a purplish tinge, estimated way up at 35,000 feet and cylindrical in shape.
So a low, slow triangle and a high cylindrical ball on the same day.
Apparently. The Seattle Weather Bureau suggested the high object could have been a weather balloon, but they noted the sighting time, 4 p.m., was unusual for a launch. They usually went up around midnight and noon.
So multiple weird things, maybe unrelated, all getting lumped under the flying disc umbrella, making it even harder to sort out.
Exactly. It shows the complexity investigators faced. Was it one phenomenon or many different things all happening around the same time?
Let's go even further north. Alaska. Fort Richardson. A report from 2 Army officers.
Right. The exact date isn't in this specific report, but it was early on, before the FBI officially changed its policy on investigating these things, so potentially a less filtered account.
And what did these Army officers see?
They described an object shaped like a sphere. It appeared metallic and was silver in color, much like the color of aluminum.
A sphere, metallic, silver, any size estimate.
Approximately 2 or 3 feet in diameter, and importantly, did not leave any vapor trail. which rules out jets as they were understood then.
What about speed and altitude?
Moving at a tremendous rate of speed, which could not be judged as to miles per hour. Just too fast to estimate accurately. And it was traveling below the cloud formation, with clouds reported above 10,000 feet. So definitely not some high-altitude atmospheric thing.
Okay, sphere, metallic, fast, no trail, below the clouds. But what's the kicker here? The really remarkable feature.
The detail that just throws out so many conventional explanations, the officers pointed out it was definitely traveling against the wind.
Against the wind, that's huge.
It really is. That single detail, it eliminates balloons, debris, maybe even some early, less powerful aircraft designs. It strongly suggests controlled, powered flight that could overcome atmospheric conditions. It implies a propulsion system completely independent of the wind.
It's those little specific details, isn't it? Like against the wind. They challenge the easy explanations.
They force you to consider something genuinely beyond the conventional understanding of flight back then, something with technology or characteristics unknown to the observers.
All right, one last stop on our eyewitness tour. Philadelphia. City of brotherly love gets some strange visitors on August 6, 1947. Multiple sightings here, too.
Yeah, a cluster of reports. One witness saw a large white object traveling at a very fast rate of speed. This one had a sound associated with it, a buzzing sound, not too loud, but plainly audible.
A buzzing.
Yeah.
Interesting. Did it leave anything behind?
A thin streak of smoke, which was grayish in color, so a visual, speed, a distinct sound, and a trail, a lot of sensory input there.
And there was another witness, a former pilot.
Yes, a former B-24 pilot in the Army Air Corps, highly trained observer. He saw a bluish-white flame passing quickly through the air from northeast to southwest.
A flame. Like a meteor.
Maybe, but his estimations challenged that. He figured it was between 1,000 and 3,000 feet in the air, pretty low for most meteors, and traveling between 400 to 500 miles an hour. That's fast, approaching or exceeding speeds of many contemporary aircraft.
And he noted other things.
Crucially, he stated it did not lose elevation, which is unlike a meteor burning up, and it left either smoke or a condensation trail for about 2 seconds. He also specifically noted the sound wasn't as loud as a plane, again pointing away from conventional aircraft. His background makes those estimates pretty significant.
Any other descriptions from Philly?
A retired police officer saw something resembling a giant firecracker. This one made no noise, but disappeared within a split second, leaving a fiery trail for about 100 feet.
So fast, bright, sometimes buzzing, sometimes silent, leaving trails.
Yeah.
A real mix, but all suggesting something energetic and unusual.
Definitely. The local paper, the Philadelphia Inquirer, tried to rationalize it, suggesting maybe it was something from an oil refinery or a chemical company, a sort of industrial byproduct.
Did that check out?
Naval and Army intelligence investigated and found no experimental work on new planes nearby that could explain it. There was a chemical company explosion nearby on the same day, which seems convenient.
Uh-huh. Case closed.
Not quite. They noted the location of the explosion does not seem to fit into the general pattern of the flying object's reported path. So the convenient local explanation didn't quite hold up under scrutiny. Another example of official attempts to find a conventional answer and coming up short.
Okay, so we've heard these incredible, sometimes baffling eyewitness accounts. But what about when these things supposedly left something behind? Physical evidence, that's where it gets potentially even more concrete, right?
Potentially, yes. Moving from just observation to tangible stuff that could, in theory, be analyzed. This takes us to New Hampshire, July 7, 1947. Metal particles found at West Ridge.
Metal particles, were they just random scraps?
Apparently not. They were taken seriously enough to undergo a spectrographic examination at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
Wow, MIT. That's top tier. So they were definitely treating this seriously early on.
It certainly seems so. And the analysis was quite specific. They determined the particles were ordinary cast iron which had been subjected to a very high degree of heat.
Cast iron, like from a stove or something, but intensely heated.
Exactly. The heat was so intense it caused scales to form on the surface, which initially made them think it might be some kind of metallic alloy. Imagine finding cast iron that's been heated so much it changes its surface appearance.
Did they figure out what the original object might have been?
They measured 4 pieces and concluded they had most likely been originally all part of one hollow cylinder, 8 inches in diameter and 3/16 of an inch in thickness. Very specific dimensions for a hollow cylinder, not just random debris.
A hollow iron cylinder that got superheated and broke apart. Where did they think it came from?
Well, they considered the trajectory. The MIT scientists noted that if these pieces fell from a great altitude, like space, most of the heat would have been taken from them by the time they reached the ground, and fires would not have resulted.
Implying there were signs of recent heat or fire where they landed.
The report suggests that yes, they landed near a railroad track, which is an obvious source for heated metal, but inquiries confirmed they did not come from a train or locomotive, so they ruled out the mundane explanation right there.
Okay, so not from a train, then what? This is where it gets really interesting, isn't it? The guided missile connection.
This is a really significant nugget, yeah. An unidentified scientist at MIT recalled something intriguing, that cast iron cylinders of similar measurements had been used in New Mexico on research work on a guided missile project.
Whoa! Guided missiles in 1947.
What?
That was cutting-edge, top-secret stuff.
Absolutely. The report is careful. It presents this as a possibility, not a definite conclusion, but just the mention of a secret weapons project like guided missiles in the same breath as potential flying disc debris in an official FBI document. That's incredibly striking.
It suggests that some people, scientists even, were considering if these things could be related to highly advanced, possibly domestic technology.
Yeah.
Not necessarily extraterrestrial.
That's one interpretation, yes. That it might tie back to experimental tech. What's also fascinating is the secrecy around the whole MIT examination.
How secret?
The inquiry was treated as secret. Only a comparatively small number of scientists knew about it. Explicitly, no publicity has been given, and it is not anticipated that any will result.
They were keeping a tight lid on it. Did the MIT scientists even know the FBI was interested?
According to the file, the FBI's interest was specifically not known to the scientists at MIT. Further compartmentalization. And to be crystal clear, the document states there was no speculation that a guided missile originating in a foreign land landed in New Hampshire.
So if it was missile-related, the thinking leaned towards domestic, not foreign, trying to avoid panic or international incidents in the early Cold War.
That seems plausible, a strong desire to understand what happened without causing a bigger stir.
Okay, from fiery fragments in New Hampshire to stubborn ash near Scranton, Pennsylvania. This case is a bit later, May 1949, but still tied into this whole phenomenon.
Yeah, this involves a house fire with some really unusual, perplexing circumstances.
What was so weird about it?
Well, for starters, the report states the fire had continued to burn for 12 hours after water had first been applied.
12 hours.
Yeah.
While being hosed down? That's not normal for a house fire.
Highly unusual. Water usually knocks down house fires pretty quickly. The witness also initially claimed an object entered the roof of the building, caused an explosion, and threw people out of bed.
An object hit the house.
That was the initial claim. Though he later sort of backtracked, speculating the loud noise might have been from a vacuum created, not a direct explosion. But still, the entry through the roof plus the persistent fire, very odd.
And they analyzed the ash from this fire.
Yes. Lab results showed it contained magnesium, aluminum, iron, and calcium in the form of silicates, along with sulfur and carbonates.
Okay, chemistry lesson time. Is that mix unusual for just burn house stuff?
Very unusual. A normal house fire leaves mostly carbon, common oxides from wood, plaster, textiles. Finding these specific metallic and mineral compounds, especially as silicates, plus sulfur and carbonates, and in a large quantity, the report says, amounting to 1 bushel, remained strongly suggests an external high-temperature source, something beyond ordinary combustion.
And the person who provided the ash had an interesting background.
Yeah, he'd been employed by the Atomic Energy Commission at Oak Ridge until 1943, so someone with a technical background, described as entirely rational.
What do you think the ash was?
He had his own opinion, that the ash might be a part of a military flare or a flying saucer. He mentioned that engineer friends told him some military flares do burn for a long time, which could explain the persistent fire.
So flare was one possibility. What about a meteor?
He specifically discounted the meteor theory because of the chemical analysis. The composition just didn't match typical meteoritic material.
So the weird chemical signature pushed away from natural explanations like meteors and toward either specialized military gear or something unknown like a flying saucer.
Exactly. It's that kind of data that made simple explanations less plausible, pushing investigators towards more unconventional possibilities.
Now, besides the ash and the fragments, were there ever any actual alleged flying saucer specimens brought in, like pieces of a craft?
There were instances, yes. People brought things to military command, the FBI got involved, you'd think, aha, the smoking gun. But the documents often tell a more complicated, sometimes frustrating story.
Meaning they turned out to be not saucers.
Pretty much. In one case, an alleged specimen was examined and the conclusion was unequivocal. It definitely had no connection whatsoever with the Mogul project, nor with any other research and development project of this command.
Mogul. That was a secret balloon project for detecting Soviet nuclear tests, right?
That's the one. So ruling out a connection to that specific classified program was significant. It meant it likely wasn't just a piece of secret U.S. tech falling out of the sky.
Were there other examples?
Another case involved an instrument that a Mrs. Shaden kind of hinted was used in Operation Mogul. Wright Field, a key Air Force R&D center, quickly classified it as a hoax. There were apparent discrepancies between her story and what Air Force intelligence knew. Major Hopkins, with radio expertise, also confirmed the instrument couldn't have been used for Mogul.
So a lot of effort went into debunking false leads, too, filtering out the noise.
That was a big part of the FBI's initial role, yes. And remember the Maury Island incident we'll get to. An alleged disc fragment from that whole mess was examined by the Army. Their conclusion, nothing but slag from the copper mill.
Slag, so industrial waste, basically.
Exactly. While public excitement led to all sorts of things being presented as saucer debris, official investigations often found mundane explanations. But the sheer volume kept them busy, trying to separate genuine anomalies from hoaxes and misidentifications. It shows how hard it was to get definitive physical proof.
Which brings us neatly to perhaps the most infamous, most convoluted incident of 1947, Maury Island.
Maury Island, yes. This is a story that just has everything. Strange sightings, mysterious fragments, alleged cover-ups, anonymous calls, even death linked to it, and a whole lot of contradictory claims.
It's like a tangled web, isn't it? And it's all laid out in these FBI files, showing just how challenging it was for authorities to deal with misinformation and sensationalism.
It really is a case study in that. The core story starts with a witness, a man patrolling his boat near Maury Island, Washington on June 21st, 1947. He claims he saw 6 round, circular gray objects.
6 of them. Did you describe them?
In very specific terms, actually, like large inner tubes, slightly squashed, about 100 feet across with a 25-foot hole in the center. Highly unusual, very precise description.
Inner tubes?
Yeah.
Okay. What happened next in his story?
The dramatic part. One object appeared to be in trouble, descended, seemed to make contact with another one. Then this troubled object seemed to throw a lot of debris from one of the portholes.
Debris falling from the sky.
According to him, yes. It showered his boat with fragments, causing damage, broke the wheelhouse window, damaged the spotlight, the klaxon horn, and incredibly, he claimed it killed our dog and a seagull.
Killed his dog? That's intense. What happened to the crew?
His son and another man apparently got off the boat and hid under some logs on the shore. He even stated they threw the dog into the water after it died. Very specific, very grim details.
Did he have any proof? Photos? The debris?
He claimed he took pictures, but said the printed films were marred with white spots, making them useless. Convenient, perhaps. He also claimed he went back to the island later and found the beach littered with lava.
Lava, not metal fragments.
Lava or slag-like material. And he claimed he saw another disk hovering over the island on that return trip, which then disappeared into a large cloud.
Wow, so a layered story with damage, dead animals, weird debris, repeat sightings. It sounds dramatic.
Extremely dramatic. And it quickly drew attention, especially from the media or certain parts of it.
Like who?
A Chicago magazine editor. From a company called Transocean Press, which published Fantasy magazine. He contacted the witness, sent him $200, which is a decent chunk of change back then for expense money, to investigate and cover the story.
Okay, so money entered the picture pretty early. Did the witness jump at the chance?
Interestingly, he professed reluctance to tell the story, claimed several unfortunate incidents had occurred since the sighting, brought him bad luck, even mentioned a mysterious man warning him to forget all about everything he had seen, and his 16-year-old son running away. Adds to the whole mystery, doesn't it?
Or adds to the story. Then things took an even darker turn with a plane crash, right?
Yes, the plot thickens dramatically. August 1st, 1947, just over a month after the alleged sighting, a B-25 military plane crashes near Kelso, Washington.
Okay, tragic, but how does it connect to Maury Island?
Through anonymous phone calls, unidentified individuals started calling local newspapers and the FBI before the names of the crew were officially released.
What did they claim?
They claimed the B-25 had been shot down or sabotaged because it was carrying flying disc fragments from Maury Island. They even named the supposedly deceased officers. Captain Davidson and Lieutenant Brown.
Whoa. They linked the crash directly to the Maury Island debris story
Mm.
and named names before the official release.
Exactly. Subsequent calls even claimed the plane was hit by 20-millimeter shells, implying military action, and that another plane, a Marine plane found, crashed on Mount Rainier around the same time, had also been shot down. Trying to weave this narrative of a conspiracy, a cover-up involving downed planes carrying alien evidence.
It sounds like something out of a movie, but what did the official investigations say about the B-25 crash? Did it match these anonymous claims?
Not at all. And this is where the FBI's investigation directly challenges the public story. The official military report on the B-25 crash concluded something very different.
Which was...
It stated the crash happened because flares had enveloped the entire left side almost immediately. Basically, an onboard fire involving flares got out of control, causing the plane to fall apart and explode on impact. No mention of being shot down by 20-millimeter shells or any external attack.
What about the crew? Were Davidson and Brown killed, as the callers claimed?
Here's another major discrepancy. The official report identified only 2 personnel on board, Sergeant R.L. Jaffe and Sergeant W.U. Mathers. One was uninjured, one was injured. This specific report mentions no fatalities as a direct result of the crash. So the names and the fatalities claimed by the anonymous callers, completely contradicted by the official military record available to the FBI.
Okay, that's a massive hole in the conspiracy theory. The official cause was fire, not being shot down, and the crew wasn't who the callers claimed, nor were they necessarily killed in the crash, according to this report.
Precisely. This discrepancy is key. It highlights the challenge of separating fact from speculation, maybe deliberate misinformation, especially when tragedy and conspiracy get woven together in the public narrative.
Did the military report mention anything else relevant?
It did note that Army personnel took precautions to prevent civilians from disturbing the wreckage. Standard procedure, maybe, but in this context, it could feed the secrecy and rumor mill.
So the FBI investigates Maury Island itself, even to use the main witness. What did they find? Did his story hold up?
Their findings really cast a significant shadow over the whole thing. They systematically started dismantling key parts of his story.
How so?
It turned out the witness and his son had originally found some strange rock formations, likely the slag in a gravel pit on Maury Island before the alleged sighting. They sent these rocks to the Chicago editor initially just for chemical analysis.
Not claiming they were from a flying saucer at first?
Not initially, according to the FBI's investigation. It was the editor who later, maybe seeing a bigger story, asked them if the rocks could have come from a flying disc. That suggests the editor might have planted the idea or at least steered the narrative.
Did the witness admit this?
He initially denied making any statement to anyone that these rock formations were portions of a disc fragment, which contradicts his later claims and suggests his story changed as it gained attention.
So what was the FBI's final conclusion on Maury Island and the plane crash link?
Stark and critical. Investigation by the Bureau has reflected that this plane was definitely not carrying parts of a disc, and there appears to be no substantiation of a charge of sabotage. They completely refuted the anonymous calls linking the crash to flying saucer fragments.
Did they figure out who made the anonymous calls?
They suspected it was the original witness and his associate, the one who had a friend at the Chicago Times. The FBI believed the calls were possibly made by them in order to build up the flying disc story to the point where they can make a profitable sale of the story.
So, a potential hoax driven by money, using the plane crash tragedy to hype it up.
That was the FBI's strong suspicion, yes. And the witness's eventual behavior kind of supports this. He apparently got sick of the entire business.
He backed away from it.
Dramatically so. He stated that if he was ever contacted by the Army or authorities again, he was going to deny ever having seen anything and claimed to be the biggest liar who ever lived.
Wow. That's quite an ending. A sad commentary on the whole affair, maybe.
It really is. Maury Island becomes this prime example of just how hard it was for authorities to sort out genuine anomalies from hoaxes, misinterpretations, sensationalism, especially when media and money got involved. It shows how fast a story can spin out of control.
This whole situation, the hoaxes, the sheer volume of reports, it must have put a strain on the FBI, which leads us to a crucial turning point. Their shifting stance on investigating these things at all.
Absolutely. Initially, there seemed to be this cooperative spirit, right? The Air Force intelligence asked the FBI for help.
Why the FBI specifically?
The idea was for the FBI to assist in order to quickly and effectively rule out what are pranks and to concentrate on what appears to be a genuine incident. Basically, used the FBI's investigative network to filter the noise, vet the thousands of public reports, so the Air Force could focus on anything potentially real or threatening. Makes sense on paper.
But the Air Force had its own early theories too, didn't they? Reflecting the time.
Oh, definitely. This gives you a fascinating insight into that Cold War paranoia. Early on, the Air Force indicated that alleged sightings of flying discs might have been made by individuals of communist sympathies for the purpose of causing mass hysteria in the United States over the fear of a secret Russian weapon.
Seriously, they thought communists might be faking UFO reports to scare Americans.
That was one initial line of speculation, yes. Seeing potential psychological warfare or espionage behind every unexplained light in the sky, it truly highlights those deep geopolitical anxieties and how they immediately colored the lens through which these phenomena were viewed.
Even if the underlying idea was pretty speculative.
Highly speculative. But it shows how real-world fears shape interpretations of the unknown.
But then the cooperation between the FBI and Air Force hit a snag, a big snag. The ashcan covers controversy.
Right. This seems to be the breaking point, particularly for the FBI director, J. Edgar Hoover. It came down to a specific letter from Army Air Forces Intelligence.
What did the letter say that got Hoover so riled up?
It implied the FBI should mostly focus on investigating incidents of so-called discs being found on the ground. Okay, maybe fine. But then it explicitly stated the FBI's help was enlisted to relieve the numbered air forces of the task of tracking down all the many instances, which turned out to be ashcan covers, toilet seats, and whatnot.
Ouch. Ashcan covers, toilet seats, and whatnot. That sounds dismissive.
Extremely dismissive. Hoover's reaction, documented in memos, was exceptionally strong. He called the language entirely uncalled for.
He felt insulted.
Clearly. He interpreted it as the Air Force thinking the Bureau should only investigate those cases which are not important and which are almost, in fact, ridiculous. Like the FBI was just the cleanup crew for hoaxes and trivial stuff, not a serious partner in investigating potentially significant phenomena. It struck a nerve about the Bureau's prestige and purpose.
You can see how that wouldn't sit well. Bureaucratic turf wars, even over flying saucers.
Exactly. And this perceived slight had major consequences. Hoover decided he cannot permit the personnel and time of this organization to be dissipated in this manner.
So he pulled the plug.
He did. He explicitly instructed all FBI field divisions to discontinue all investigative activity regarding the reported sightings of flying discs. From then on, they were told to simply refer all such complaints to the appropriate Air Force authorities.
Wow. So the FBI essentially washed its hands of investigating the sightings themselves.
Largely, yes. It marked this significant withdrawal. It shows the tension between agencies, the institutional pride. The primary responsibility for investigating flying discs shifted much more squarely to the Air Force.
Setting the stage for things like Project Sign, Grudge, Blue Book.
Precisely. It's a clear example of how internal politics, even just perceived insults in a memo, can fundamentally change how government handles even potentially extraordinary events.
Beyond the official investigations and the interagency drama, these documents also give us glimpses of some really unusual public reactions and personal takes on what was happening. Captures the feel of the time.
Absolutely. Some of them are quite unique. For instance, there was this proposal from Alexandria, Louisiana. A member of the Young Men's Business Club suggested promoting a convention specifically for flying saucer seers.
A convention? For people who'd seen flying saucers, was this serious or tongue-in-cheek?
Yeah. The file doesn't explicitly state the tone, but here's the kicker. The idea apparently garnered a large number of requests from many parts of the United States. People were genuinely interested. They wanted to connect, share experiences, maybe find answers together, since official sources weren't providing many.
People were looking for community around this mystery.
It seems so. And get this. Even the Air Force from nearby Barksdale Field inquired about the convention plans, stating that they are interested in furnishing an observer if such a convention were held.
The military wanted to send an observer to a flying saucer seers convention.
That's what the document says. It tells you something about the level of uncertainty, even confusion within official channels. They were willing to explore almost any avenue, it seems. What a snapshot of the public and official mood.
Definitely shows the pervasive interest and the lack of concrete answers. What about more out there interpretations?
Oh, plenty of those too. The files mention a mystery writer who was connected to some initial reports. He apparently held a firm conviction that some of the flying discs have come from other planets.
Okay, the extraterrestrial hypothesis surfaces early.
Ah,
Did he elaborate?
he did. He also spoke of caverns within the Earth containing valuable machinery and other resources, suggesting these were the origins of the objects.
Underground caverns. So not necessarily aliens from space, but maybe a hidden terrestrial civilization.
Seems to be the implication. It takes us firmly into speculative territory, of course, but it shows how quickly imaginative, sometimes fantastical theories rushed in to fill the vacuum left by official explanations. The power of the unknown on human imagination.
Any other interesting personal theories recorded?
There was that experienced former Army Air Corps pilot, the one who saw the flaming object over Philadelphia. His speculation was it was radically built and powered, probably atomic.
Atomic powered.
Yeah.
Reflects that post-war mindset, doesn't it? Atomic energy was the new magic, capable of anything.
Exactly. For someone trying to explain capabilities that seem to defy conventional engineering, extreme speed, maneuverability, maybe silence atomic was the go-to explanation for bleeding edge, almost incomprehensible power, a natural leap, even if pure speculation.
And finally, circling back to the human cost, the Maury Island witness.
Right. His feeling that he'd been ridiculed by the press to such an extent that he is practically a moron in the eyes of the majority of the population of the United States. That quote is in the files.
It's a poignant reminder, isn't it? Reporting something so strange could have real significant social and personal consequences back then.
Absolutely. It wasn't just about what you saw. It was about how society, the media, your community reacted. It underlines the courage it might have taken for some people to come forward, knowing they faced skepticism, possibly outright scorn, especially if their story didn't hold up or got sensationalized and then debunked.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the 1947 files, we've journeyed through these diverse eyewitness accounts from all over the U.S., baffled lights in Alabama, that disintegrating object in Washington.
The gleaming disk in Montana, silent formations over Utah, that sphere defying Alaskan winds, the flaming things over Philly. Each report a unique piece of a really enigmatic puzzle from that year.
We've also looked closely at the physical side, the investigations into puzzling anomalies. Those fiery cast iron fragments in New Hampshire hinting at secret projects.
The stubborn ash in Pennsylvania with its weird chemical signature, the alleged saucer specimens that mostly turned out to be slag or hoaxes. These cases really highlight the struggle investigators had trying to get a handle on tangible evidence when it did appear.
And Maury Island. We really peel back the layers there, the traumatic claims, the tragic crash, the anonymous calls, and the FBI's eventual conclusion of a likely hoax for profit, a real tangled web.
A case study in the chaos and confusion of the time, absolutely.
We also tracked the FBI's own journey, didn't we? From that initial cooperation with the Air Force, colored by Cold War paranoia.
To that abrupt disengagement. Hoover feeling slighted by the ashcan cover's comment and pulling his agents out of the flying disc investigation business, shifting the burden entirely to the Air Force, revealing those internal bureaucratic frictions.
And woven through it all, those fascinating public and personal reactions. The saucer seer convention idea, the wild theories about aliens or inner Earth caverns.
And the very real human cost for people like the Maury Island witness, caught in the glare of publicity and ridicule.
The whole point of this deep dive, really, was to present you, the listener, with the raw information from these official FBI sources. Just lay out the facts as they were reported and investigated back then.
Exactly. To provide that historical window, we've tried to stay neutral, just present the data that the government agencies themselves were grappling with. And again, these documents are out there, public domain, on the FBI vault. You can read them yourself.
It's a powerful reminder that these weren't just stories. They were real reports from real people, processed by real government agencies, trying desperately to understand something they couldn't easily explain, classify, or sometimes even dismiss.
Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe something for you to ponder further. Perhaps the true mystery isn't just what people saw or didn't see in the skies back in 1947.
Okay.
Perhaps the deeper mystery lies in how our institutions, our society reacted. How we collectively grapple with the genuinely unexplained, and how that whole struggle, the confusion, the biases, the politics, it all unfolds right there, documented in black and white, and official files now available for all of us to see.